We are very possibly living in the era of the greatest Supreme Court bench in American history. That has been true, that we are very possibly in that era, since last year's decision in Dobbs, which overruled the single worst decision in American history, Roe v. Wade. But the claim has now gotten some strong backup since yesterday, the Supreme Court of the United States struck down affirmative action, racial discrimination in college admissions. And as a cherry on top, the exact losing party was the liberal lunatics over at Harvard. That was just a little L for Harvard was just right on top of this otherwise totally beautiful case. Already totally beautiful case. The case was Students for Fair Admissions Incorporated versus President and Fellows of Harvard College. And the court ruled 6-3 that race-based admissions programs at Harvard and UNC violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Chief Justice Roberts joined the conservatives and wrote for the court, quote, "Eliminating racial discrimination means eliminating all of it." I know that conservatives are supposed to whine and complain and constantly lament the end of the world. But this Supreme Court, thanks to 3 judges appointed by one president who was improbably elected after all the smart set political geniuses said hope was lost, he didn't have a chance, 99% chance the Democrat was going to win. Well, this Supreme Court that exists only as a result of all those things happening has officially and significantly changed the course of American history for the better. Just when conservatives were inclined to give up hope, we remember an important lesson heading into 4th of July weekend. A verse of a very important song that very often gets left out of the singing. "Oh, thus be it ever, when free men shall stand between their loved home and the war's desolation. Blessed with victory and peace may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must when our cause it is just, and this be our motto, in God is our trust. And the star-spangled banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave." This case overrules a previous case, Grutter v. Bollinger. This was a case that was decided 23 years ago, I think it was. I think it was a 2003 case. And at the time that Grutter was decided, which upheld affirmative action in college admissions, Sandra Day O'Connor, the nominally conservative Republican appointed justice who often sided with the Libs, she said, "We expect that 25 years from now, the use of racial preferences will no longer be necessary." So already built in to the upholding of affirmative action was this idea that it's going to be time limited. And where do you get that principle from in the Constitution? You don't. And it was just the Supreme Court with the Libs and the squish conservatives shooting from the hip. But now we're almost exactly 25 years later, and the court says, okay, time's up. It wasn't just Sandra Day O'Connor, who, though a squish, was still appointed by a Republican, by Ronald Reagan, but it was even the Libs. It was even the liberal icons. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, at the time of Grutter v. Bollinger, upholding affirmative action, she still said that it can't be used forever, but it's useful for the time being to give us the racial outcomes that we want in society. Justice Thomas, at the time, made a really important point that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, but it shows you why these schools are so insistent on upholding affirmative action. They were insistent on it not just because they're liberal ideologues and they hate white people and they want to help other racial groups get an unfair advantage over white people or whatever. It's also because these schools want to maintain their prestige, and they recognize that as racial diversity and inclusion and equity and whatever, all the rest of these ideologies become important in American life, that in order to continue to train the elite, the people who inevitably will become part of the elite, so long as this ideology predominates, they need to bring in more people of these racial groups that are not doing as well on the tests, and if test scores are the only thing that matter, are not going to be admitted to the college in very high numbers. So they're trying to maintain their prestige and their hold on American public life. Thomas went even further, Clarence Thomas, in the Grutter case, and he said that the schools have to pick high standards or diversity. That's that. If they're going to exalt high standards, then they need to stop playing favorites with the races. If they're going to exalt racial diversity or whatever, sexual diversity or all the other kinds of diversity for diversity's sake, then they need to stop pretending that they're valuing high standards. It's one or the other. They're mutually opposed here because even if you say, well, obviously there are plenty of black people who do very well on tests and who will do very well in these schools. I mean, Justice Thomas would be a great example of this. It's about the principle that you're enshrining. Is college admissions primarily about high standards, or is it primarily about diversity and ideology? So today, the Supreme Court says affirmative action gone in college admissions. And don't forget, the Supreme Court reads the polls, Supreme Court reads the newspapers, and a majority of Americans, 62%, overwhelmingly, not just Republicans, not just white people, but a wide smattering of American people oppose race-based college admissions because they all know it seems really, really unfair. So now we've got the opinion, we got the dissent, we've got two dueling opinions in the case, one opinion, one dissent, from the two black members of the Supreme Court offering very different visions of race and affirmative action and the Constitution, which we'll get to in 1 second. First, though, before I talk to you about that, I need to talk to you about talking to your friends and your family, which is why you got to check out Pure Talk. Right now, head on over to puretalk.com/Knowles. I am a very discerning partner, okay, in my love life, in my social life, in my professional life. I'm discerning about the partners that I choose and a company that I'm proud to stand behind because that company is proud to stand behind us and our country and offers a great service is Pure Talk. Veteran-owned with a 100% American workforce. They share our beliefs. That is why Pure Talk is the official cell phone wireless partner of the Daily Wire. But that's not the only reason. Pure Talk also happens to be the most dependable 5G network in the U.S. They're a top-tier provider at a fraction of the cost of those other woke companies that don't care about you or your beliefs. Mix and match your plans to fit every person in your family. Choose from talk, text, and 5G data for just $20 a month, all the way up to unlimited data with a mobile hotspot for $55 a month. You vote with how you spend your money, so stop supporting woke wireless companies that do not support you. Instead, go to puretalk.com/Knowles. You'll get great coverage and save while you're doing it. puretalk.com/Knowles. Save an additional 50% off your first month because they value you. puretalk.com/Knowles. Pure Talk, wireless for Americans, by Americans. The Libs love Justice Ketanji Jackson. She's the new one. She's the Biden appointee. And Ketanji Jackson, she's feisty. They like her because she's a woman. They like her because she's black. They like her for all these kind of more superficial, skin-deep reasons, sexual reasons. And they like her because she's extremely radical. She didn't know what a woman was. She couldn't define a woman at her confirmation hearings. So I didn't have very high hopes for her dissent in this case. And my low expectations were proven correct. Here's what she wrote. And this is the portion of Ketanji Jackson's dissent that all the libs are sharing around. They say, quote, "With let them eat cake obliviousness, today the majority pulls the ripcord and announces color blindness for all by legal fiat. But deeming race irrelevant in law does not make it so in life. And having so detached itself from this country's actual past and present experiences, the court has now been lured into interfering with the crucial work that UNC and other institutions of higher learning are doing to solve America's real-world problems. No one benefits from ignorance. Although formal race-linked legal barriers are gone, race still matters to the lived experiences. I mean, it's just a blah, 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 lived experience. You know, it's basically, my friend Spencer Clavin pointed this out. He's like, going in here, the students bringing the case and the group bringing the case on behalf of the students saying, hey, we don't want to be discriminated against just because we're Asian or white. They had the law on their side, they had philosophy on their side, they had morality on their side, they had the opinion of the conservative judges on their side, they had the opinion of very prominent liberal judges on their side. They had a pretty good case. And on the pro-race discrimination side of this case, they had diversity is our strength, the lived experiences of the racial oppression, and it's just that was not a legally persuasive view. And it hasn't persuaded the majority of the American people. The funniest part of Justice Jackson's very silly dissent is that first line of this section. Let them eat cake obliviousness. Because what that term does is reveals Justice Jackson's obliviousness. We know she's oblivious. She doesn't know what a woman is. But she's also oblivious to history because that phrase, let them eat cake, is a phrase attributed to Marie Antoinette, When Marie Antoinette supposedly was told that the peasants didn't have bread to eat, she said, let them eat cake, let them eat brioche. But it's a total fabrication. It was made up. The line actually predates Marie Antoinette. No great princess said it. It's just fake. It's just total fake news. And the libs fall into their fake news all the time. And they are oblivious to history and biology and philosophy and the law, apparently. And so it's over. What does Justice Thomas say in response to this? He answers Jackson. He says, accordingly, Justice Jackson's race-infused worldview falls flat at each step. Individuals are the sum of their unique experiences, challenges, and accomplishments. What matters is not the barriers they face, but how they choose to confront them. And their race is not to blame for everything, good or bad, that happens in their lives. A contrary, myopic worldview based on individual skin color to the total exclusion of their personal choices is nothing short of racial determinism. So true. Two different visions of race. One conservative from Justice Thomas, one liberal from Justice Jackson. Thomas is a Catholic. You can just tell this in his writing, in the way he speaks. Justice Thomas has the Christian view here, specifically a very Catholic view of the world. Justice Jackson, again, her religion is just racial grievance and liberalism and whining and pride. Thomas's hard work, humility, gratitude. Jackson's envy, resentment, pride, anger, wrath. All the stuff we associate with the libs. And as has happened now a couple times from the Supreme Court recently, and what happens rarely in our political life, the good side won. Boy, what a great clip that was. Now, hey, make sure you ring that bell, subscribe to the Michael Knowles YouTube channel. See you next time.